Tennessee Death Row Dogs, your local dog rescue nonprofit. Talkopolis, the social media TV network for your city.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of Player to Player. I am Brad Hopkins.
And I'm Derrick Mason.
Now, we're usually at Classic Sports Barbershop. You can find them downtown Franklin. It's a place where you can get, if you look at Derrick is pristine for one reason. Because of Tony and Brian down there at Classic Sports Barbershop. They can always get your hair game right. And if you're looking for a vehicle, whether it's a Maserati or a muscle car, as a matter of fact, they're featuring a brand new 2012 Panamera Porsche with a little over 37,000 miles. It's Fidelity Motors at 1207 Fessler's Lane. They're another one of our great sponsors, and they're also a place where Michael Spurgeon, the owner down there, can get you in the right vehicle. Regardless of what it is you're looking for, they can get you right. So, Derrick, we got a lot to talk about today in the world of sports. People think that when football season is over, that basically the world of sports, especially when it comes to you and I, pretty much dies. But man alive, they couldn't be any further than the truth.
No, not at all. I mean, football rules everything, and you got to understand that. Whether it's draft day, whether it's combine, or whether it's the Super Bowl, football rules. But in this situation, I mean, football is heavy right now because of Michael Sam and him coming out as the first openly gay player. I think it's very monumental. It's a situation where now possibly even other guys can come out, feel comfortable with coming out with their sexuality. So you always want to wait and see what's going to happen. You never want to more or less, say the locker room's going to be this way or that way. You want to kind of see how it play out. With the way it played out in Missouri, I think that's going to help him move forward, and that's going to help the NFL move forward.
Give a little bit of background on Michael Sam, who he actually is. He's an All-American, first off, the first consensus All-American defensive end from the University of Missouri. In there, I think, the third year in the SEC. So here's a guy, Derrick, that is obviously credentialed. He's a guy that plays a pretty violent position. So when you're talking about street cred in the locker room, a guy, whether he's gay or not, the physical presence that he provides, I think that's one of the things that gives him a little bit of an autonomy. Now, first off, the team knew since August that he was actually gay. So that just kind of shows you right there the respect factor that they have for Michael Sam to kind of keep this situation under wraps and not let that be a distraction for their team. Gary Pinkel, the head coach there, he spoke on this, just about basically the respect factor that not only the team and the coaching staff have for Michael Sam and his accomplishments. He's a leader. He's a guy that's been outspoken for the cause, and the cause being winning ball games. So one thing that you did touch on, him possibly being the first openly gay player in the NFL, I mean, going into it, there's all kinds of questions that he's going to receive, especially as he prepares himself for what's coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see what kind of questions he's going to have to field. I mean, when did you know you were gay? I mean, he pretty much said that in his interview, that he always, growing up, he always felt different when it comes to his sexuality. So, I mean, that question's answered. Did he, take a liking to someone inside the locker room? That's probably the question that he's going to be asked the most, because that question wasn't answered, and he never brought it up. So, but to me, it's a situation where, a guy goes in the locker room. He's a very good player. This is a guy that was an SEC All-American, Defensive Player of the Year, had over 11 and a half sacks, 19 tackles for losses. So this guy obviously can play football. But it's as you know, it's just not about football in the NFL. It's about, background, character checks, and stuff like that. So it's him, coming out as a gay player, the first openly gay player. Is it going to hurt his draft stock? I don't know. A lot of people were projecting him a mid to late round pick. So will his announcement be, will it boost him or will it drop him in the draft? Some GMs might not even want to take the chance with him, considering it might be a distraction within the locker room. And you got to understand, there's going to be some distraction. But I think if you pretty much, talk about it right when you draft them, get it over with, then it doesn't become more than a distraction.
I don't know that distraction is the word I would use in this situation, because I listened to some former players like on present NFL teams. Ryan Clark for the Pittsburgh Steelers, as a matter of fact. He talked about basically them being openly accepting of a player of his stature. Michael Sam been talking about a guy that basically can be a playmaker, and the proof is in his worth. What is he able to accomplish on the football field? If he could help Micah Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers win, he'd be acceptable on that program. I look at his teammate, his roommate when he first came into college, Marcus Foster. This guy basically said it was accepted from the beginning. And you know, like I know, Derrick, there have always been people who have been questionable, as far as their sexuality. It's just never been an issue, especially if you're looking at a person who is expected to be a pivotal part of that locker room. I played on a number of teams, whether it be in college or in the pro ranks, where there's been a guy that you may have suspected of being gay, but you know what? That's never been an issue.
Well, but because until the guy came out, it wasn't an issue. You thinking that he's gay is different from you knowing that he's gay. Now, your attitude might change somewhat because we all know. We've been in the locker rooms. We've heard the jokes. We've heard everything when it comes to homosexuality. So I just believe, me personally, I believe this, is that a lot of people are going to have to lie because they don't want to tell the truth. Because they feel if they do tell the truth, they will be ridiculed for it. They will be called homophobic. When in actuality, a lot of it is based on their beliefs. But it's not because they hate the person or dislike the person. It's just they dislike the act of homosexuality. It has nothing to do with the person. It's just like, for instance, it's just like your child. If your child goes out and he commit crimes, do you dislike your child? You don't dislike your child. You dislike the crime he's committing, but you don't dislike the child. And it's the same in the locker room. But for me, I just feel a lot of people, they're going to have to lie just to save face, just so they won't be called bigots.
People who are out there who are listening to the show that have been in locker rooms, whether it be in college or pros, you know, like I know, and Derrick knows, that it's a family. The locker room is like a family. Look at the situation down in Miami with Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito. A lot of those players are backing Richie Incognito, regardless of whether his statements were flamboyant, whether they were hurtful or egregious. Because of why? Because of Richie Incognito's rung on the team. They look at him as a guy that is a leader, a guy that can physically get the job done. And if they feel Jonathan Martin can protect himself from a guy like Richie Incognito, how can he protect the team and its efforts in battle? I looked at, we had a conversation during Super Bowl week with what's the running back that I played with?
TD?
No.
Terrell Davis?
From Oklahoma, really good running back. He's on CBS, the call right now with Tim Brando. Spencer Tillman. Oh my gosh, Spencer. I do apologize because obviously really one of my dear friends. But Spencer Tillman made a great analogy to us during the week that he could actually have taken the field with known racists, but being on the same team and being a part of that family, that is overlooked because of what? The job at hand, which is winning ball games. So regardless of the situation, I think when you look at the locker room in itself as a family environment, they're going to be more accepting of a guy like Michael Sam as long as he can do what? Get the job done. When I listened to Ryan Clark, that's what he said. The first and foremost thing that they're going to be looking at this young man is his effectability as a defensive end. And they even talked about it, his former teammates on Missouri's team. If there ever came an issue where a guy started speaking out of line, out of turn, about, maybe even being gay or something that would be offensive to someone in the locker room, this Michael Sam guy was not someone who shied away from getting in your face and setting the table straight. You see what I'm saying? So that kind of respect itself warranted, for this one player. I think that's one of the reasons why he has the autonomy in that locker room that he does.
Well, I mean, listen, it's going to take a very veteran locker room to be able to withstand all of the media attention that you're going to receive because of having Michael Sam on your team, and whether it be a Ryan Clark or anyone else. Eventually, I believe you're going to have to accept it, and you're going to have to move on. Not to say that you're necessarily going to like it, but it's just like anything else. You learn how to deal with it, you tolerate it, you accept it, and you move on, especially as a teammate. We've been in a locker room with plenty of teammates that have done things that we just didn't like, but because they were a brother within that locker room, we accepted it and we moved on. And it's going to be the same way here. But as I alluded to earlier, I want Michael Sam to be able to walk into a locker room and know what each man think. Not, one guy say one thing in his face and then go back home or go to another player and say, you know what, I really don't like that. I really don't like him as a person. I'd rather walk in a locker room, like Spencer Tillman said, I'd rather walk into a locker room and know that I'm dealing with the known racists than not. It's the same with Michael Sam. I'd rather walk into a locker room knowing that you don't like me for my sexual orientation, or you might not like or you might not like my lifestyle that I'm choosing. I'd rather walk into a locker room with that like that than rather walking in a locker room thinking everybody's kumbaya, everybody's loving me, when behind my back I got 50 of my teammates talking about me.
Well, before we transition to a lot of other topics that are news and noteworthy in the NFL, I have to say this. Just looking at it in its entirety, the situation where you're talking about a player that might be separated from his teammates in the locker room. Let's take the FCA, for example. There are a lot of players that follow Christ and they preach that mantra, and they are somehow alienated because of why? The popularity of things, cussing in the locker room, womanizing in the locker room, things of that nature. They put those things aside when you're in someone's company like that. Why? It's respect. When you know someone doesn't take the Lord's name in vain, when you know someone really puts Christ first in their lives, and they're in a locker room, and you know how those environments can be in that locker room, you curtail who you are as a person because of the people you're around. It's a respect factor.
Yeah.
You don't drop F-bombs when a guy that praises the Lord constantly, do you?
No, you don't. It's a way that you conduct yourself within a locker room around certain people. Now, will Michael Sam's be able to go in and be himself? Or will he have to shy away from who he is? That's the big thing. There's difference from being in a college locker room than being in an NFL locker room. So is he going to be able to walk in there knowing that, hey, this is who I am, I'm going to stand by what I believe, I'm going to stand by who I am, and be able to walk in that locker room with his head up? Or will he kind of, sort of, become this shell or this turtle and stick his head back in the shell?
Well,
Which one is it going to be?
First off, he's not going to the club. He's going to the locker room to work. He's not looking for a mate, so to speak. He's looking for, these are teammates. There's a difference between a mate and a teammate. And let's go ahead and let's transition to the player that's in the college basketball ranks is someone that's getting a lot of news, and that's Marcus Smart, a guy who forewent his, possibly going into the draft last year, to become a possible lottery pick, comes back, plays for Oklahoma State, finds himself into a situation, Derrick, where he reacts violently to a fan who may have said something that was offensive to him when he went flying off into the stands trying to block a shot. But still, yet he finds himself in a 3-game suspension. Do you think that the game suspension, first off, was validated for the reaction of this young man?
I think it was validated. There's never a reason for you to go in and put your hands on a fan. There's no excuse for it, regardless of what he said. You probably didn't like it. The fan was wrong for whatever he said because it incited him to go in and put his hands on the fan. But you can't, go outside of the comfort of the game and indulge in that kind of act. You just can't do it. I think the 3-game suspension was warranted. I'm surprised it wasn't more because that thing could have really escalated. And the guy could have got hurt. He could have pushed him, and the guy could have fell on somebody. Somebody, not just the guy, but someone else could have got hurt. So, I think a 3-game suspension was warranted. And Smart, he was sorry afterwards.
Right.
He did his press conference and he apologized and he said that wasn't him, that was out of character. And with a guy like that, it only happens one time, and you believe him. I mean, he got caught in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, but there was the instance, Derrick, though, where he kicked the chair.
Who doesn't kick? Who doesn't get mad? We both walked off the field and thrown our helmet a million times. But is that who we are as a person? Are we mean-spirited as a person? Are we aggressive as a person off the football field? No, that's not us. So I can understand him getting a little bit emotional. I don't condone him putting his hands on the fan, but I can understand that he got a little bit emotional. So I'm not going to judge him by one thing that he did when it comes to pushing a fan. I'm not going to say, well, he kicked the chair. I mean, who doesn't kick chair?
Well,
Bobby Knight threw a chair. Come on.
Right.
And people still love him.
Right. Some people love him, some people hate him. Okay. But Bobby Knight established himself as a person that reacted to situations like that. I think when you're looking at front office situations and you're looking at possible scenarios where this player could get the team into trouble by not necessarily understanding the constraints of the game itself, there's a reason why they put the fans right there on the floor. Okay. Yeah. Fans have been players have been diving off into the stands for years, and they will continually. But when you have fans who are now involved in the game itself, being so close to the action, start to say things adversely to the players themselves, I mean, I think that first off, the building itself has a responsibility to protect its commodity. Okay, I'm not going to take anything away and say that Marcus Smart was any sort of right in this situation. He should not have reacted that way because he has to realize the world of reality and that you can't take things out of context and start reacting to people outside of the world of athletics like you do when you do sport.
There's nothing you can do as an official within the arena, there's nothing that you can do because you have placed these fans so close to the players that regardless of what they say or what they do, you can't stop it.
Well, I'll put it this way. That one fan that did get into that situation, he's been a longtime booster of the program there at Texas Tech. He is no longer going to be going to any of the games because of the situation that he found himself in. I don't know if he's doing a school a favor or if he just doesn't want to have his face, be on the camera next time he shows up for a game. But regardless, he's taking himself out of that situation right there. So it's a crazy situation. 3-game suspension for Marcus Smart. We both kind of feel it is validated. But I will say that there is a responsibility of the fan to control themselves as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
Put it this way, you call somebody a piece of crap, when they're walking in Walgreens, you're going to get popped in the teeth. I don't care what, what the jail
but
time
it still
is
would be wrong.
It would be wrong, but you would understand where, hey, excuse me, you want to hurry up and get that bread there, you piece of crap? Well, guess what? Taking things out of context, he can get you socked in the mouth. Joakim Noah finds himself into a situation now where but we've seen Joakim Noah react kind of emotionally.
He is an emotional player. Even when he was in Florida, this is a guy that was he feeds off emotion. He's the type of guy, he's kind of like a Dennis Rodman to me.
Ooh,
a guy that feeds and play off emotion. He's everywhere. He's hustling. From the first quarter to last quarter, he's one of those guys that you want to have on your team. But he found himself in a situation where he picked up his second technical foul in the third quarter, and he decides that he didn't agree with not just one of the refs, but all three of them.
You're going to do a Coming to America in the barbershop. If you, and if you. Who's next? Exactly. See, that's a situation that obviously a professional like Joakim Noah knows better than that. But here's a guy that, like you said, he plays the game on his emotions on his sleeve. He's on the road in a tough environment. He feels the officiating is not going his direction, so he's going to let them know. The league themselves are going to handle this. How's the new commissioner, do you think, going to handle situations like this? David Stern pretty much is, he's retired. The new guy coming in, he's going to have to deal with personalities like Joakim Noah's, like DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah.
He finds himself in situations like that emotionally. How do you think the league's going to handle basically, I hate saying it, but big babies like this nowadays?
Well, I mean, come on, the whole NBA are big babies, man. You know that. Listen. I believe he will handle it as if David Stern would have handled it. He'll probably get a 1-game suspension, get fined as any other player would do, because you understand that the conduct when you're talking about, when you're referring to a referee, you can't touch a ref, you can't say anything to a ref. So the minute you touch or say anything to a ref, that's an automatic suspension. Whereas in the NFL, it's automatic 1-game suspension. We all know, and a fine. I don't know how it would be in the NBA. I'm pretty sure it will be a fine, and he will get suspended. But he's known for being that type of guy. Not necessarily when you're talking about being disrespectful, but he's known as that fiery guy. And I think he allowed his emotions, again, like Smart, allowed his emotions to take the best of him. And again, he was contrite. He went back and he apologized to all 3 of the refs. He apologized to his team. So do you judge him based on one incident? No, you don't, because you understand and you know what type of player he is and what type of person he is. So I just think, with the day and age, the type of player that you have nowadays, you will see more of this than you've ever seen before, because guys get so emotionally tied up. They work so hard for so long to play a game that they love, and then when things don't go their way, sometimes their tempers flare, and it's not necessarily the right thing.
You know what I'll say, Derrick, adding to that? I think that basically right now, with the event of social media, with it now being such a part of the game, a pivotal part of the game, the fans' access to the players themselves has made them a lot more thin-skinned. You find yourself under the scrutiny eye of a lot more fans that have a bigger voice because they're able to read the threads. And players now are reacting to that. I think that Marcus Smart, you're looking at himself, the situation he found himself in, frustrating for the team, not necessarily playing as well as they would like to play. They've lost a couple of games to teams that they shouldn't have lost to. So now they're accessible from the media, and also the social media, the fans themselves, to be able to say things, and they're reacting to that. Joakim Noah himself is reacting to the frustration of fans.
That's the same thing. Joakim Noah, his team is losing. They've lost their best player.
Right.
They traded away another one of their best players. Now they're stuck in a situation where a team that went from being a potential NBA champion to a subpar team, and now all of these frustrations are built up. You know what could have helped him is if he had his headphones on. He just put his headphones on.
His headphones.
Yeah,
just
cut
told
out
everybody
all the
he's
noise.
the man. Yeah, it worked for Colin Kaepernick. It worked for Ricky Sherman, right?
Exactly.
So maybe it would work for those guys. Since we're talking about basketball, and we're talking about guys that pretty much put the team on their shoulders, to try and win a championship. We've watched LeBron James chase that coveted title of being the best in the NBA. We've watched the greats of the game, Kobe Bryant, the greats of the game, Kevin Durant, guys of that nature. Who do you think right now, in the midway point of the 2013-2014 season, who do you think might slide into that MVP role?
Well, it's basically a three-man race between Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Carmelo Anthony. I'm a Kobe fan, so I wish I could be saying Kobe right now, but Kobe's hurt. But it's a three-man.
Kobe sounds like a grumpy old man nowadays.
I mean, he can afford to be a grumpy old man. When you get in your mid-30s, you play for a long time.
Right.
You pretty much say what you want to say and act the way you want to act, and become this grumpy old man, and everybody woe is me. So I can empathize with Kobe when he's going through his little things.
So
my big three is this: KD, LBJ, and Melo. Those three guys have basically taken their teams on their back. Now, Kevin Durant has picked up the slack because a few of his main key guys are injured. So the guy's averaging over 30 points a game. He's averaging over 5 or 6 assists a game. He's averaging over 6 rebounds a game. So the guy's just not doing it from a scoring standpoint. He's being an all-around factor in the game. This is a guy that was on a 13. He scored 30 points 13 consecutive times. You know who has the record? Kobe Bryant at 16 again.
Wow.
And then you go to LBJ. I mean, what hasn't he done?
Right.
I mean, the guy has been a consummate pro. He's been arguably the best player in the game for the last 4 or 5 years. So what he does, he's been doing for the last 3 years. He was MVP last year and the year before that. And then you bring in Carmelo. His team's struggling, but without Carmelo Anthony, this team is at the bottom of the barrel. Carmelo has been able to, put up points. And when you look at Carmelo, people look at a guy that is selfish. He's not selfish. The guy's averaging over 8 rebounds a game. For a small forward, he's averaging 3 or 4 assists a game. Carmelo is they say he's usually shooting the ball, but he does give assists every now and then. And then the guy just came off a 62-point game. In the Garden, he broke whose record? Kobe Bryant, and as well as Bernard King's for scoring the most points in the Knicks uniform.
Anytime a guy scores 60 points, he's shooting way too much.
He's not shooting way.
He's shooting way too much.
He went 23 for 34. That's not shooting. He shot a lot, but he made majority of his shots. He shot over 50%, almost 60% from the field. So if I'm gonna have a guy shooting 34 times and he's making 23 of them, I want him to shoot every night.
2 words, in my opinion, describe Carmelo Anthony: ball stop.
Wow.
Yeah, when it comes in his hands.
Would you want him on your team? Would you want him on your team?
No, no, I would not want him on my
serious?
team. And the reason why I wouldn't want him on my team is because the results of him being this great player haven't proven anything. How many championships has Carmelo Anthony won? Especially by himself.
Well, how many has KD won?
Because he can't do. Well, I'll put it this way: KD, in my opinion, missing a few of his productive pieces, like you talked about, Russell Westbrook would help him a lot, tremendously, if he was in there consistently. The presence of a big man, a better big man would be consistently. I know, but either way, I think their situation would be a lot better for KD.
So you're saying Kendrick Perkins is not a big man?
No, he is a big man. But he's just too busy wrestling people rather than getting into pain. Anyway, that's going to do it for us right here on Player to Player. We are brought to you by Classic Sports Barbershop in the middle of Franklin, downtown Tennessee. Go in there and see Brian and Tony today and get your haircut right. And for Fidelity Motors, Michael Spurgeon, he's the guy that can get your car game right. We talked about Maseratis and muscle cars. They have a tremendous selection down there. As a matter of fact, they're featuring a 2012 Porsche Panamera. That's that 4-door Porsche. I'm surprised you don't have one, but you're a great collection.
Don't you got one in your car on garage?
No.
Yeah, I think I saw you riding one.
I'm selling them nowadays. I can't own them. But anyway, stopped in to see him today. Hey, listen, for Derrick Mason, I'm Brad Hopkins. First off, where can they find you real quick on Twitter?
They can find me at @DMason. That's DEEMASON 85. That's DEEMASON 85.
And I'm at B_Hop72 on Twitter. Check us out, like us on Facebook, and we'd love to have you. For Talkopolis, for Fidelity Motors, for Classic Sports Barbershop, we'll see you next time.
Peace.